questions. We have tons of them. What if some of those questions can be answered with a simple email? Now is that time, and welcome to Chat with Charlie. Host Stephanie Lynn is a certified spiritual life coach and psychic medium. She will work together with Spirit to answer both your submitted and live questions. Not only will Stephanie be providing you with insight, but also interviews with amazing guests. Now, your host of Chat with Charlie, Stephanie Lynn.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see here, it's not a normal day. We have Ellie here with us. So you are listening to WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. And this is the Chat with Charlie monthly special of In the Mix with Ellie. How are you today, Ellie?
Hey, good morning, Steph and everyone. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. We do want to let the viewers know, as you're kind of tuning in this morning, there's storms rumbling through northern Wisconsin and down by the producer. So you might see some glitches, you might see some hiccups. And, well, let's be honest, it's Ellie and I, so things sometimes just get interesting. They just get interesting. Good morning, Teresa. So I'm kind of excited about our topics today, Ellie. And, for the viewers who maybe are just tuning in, Ellie and I scour the internet for interesting stories that have to do with more unexplained events, and kind of give you our take on them, have conversation about them. We encourage you to send them in, and we're also here to answer questions if you have some things going on too that you'd like some insight in. Not as far as personal readings, but I don't know, maybe you got knocking on a random door in your house and you wonder what's going on. So that's what today's show is really about, right, Ellie? The weirdness,
That's
weirdness
right.
of things.
The weird stuff that we're trying to explain. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if we explain it well sometimes, but that's what we're here for. So one thing, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but Ellie and I had talked about this earlier, and it brought up, even though I know the person that put the reel out is really, she uses a lot of satire in her conversations and comedy, but she had joked about suing her parents. But in her reel, and I will share all the links as we talk about these things. If you watch her reel, she talks about, she had children ethically because she adopted them. And joked about suing her parents for having her without their consent. And that is a thing. I mean, people have actually sued for what's called wrongful conception, right? Which I think is interesting. And they've won. And a lot of times these are people that are born with disabilities, and they feel that they should not have been born. But if you watch this reel, the thing that struck me, and the only reason we're talking about this, is because the person that did it had said about, if you are planning on having a child with your significant other and conceiving this child, that you should reach out to a medium for consent from the unborn child before having them. What do you think about that, Ellie?
Well, that was really interesting. Then she also went into saying that if you're being told that this baby does not want to be born, you should go ahead and get an abortion. And we all know where this has gone recently.
Right.
But I've always felt and been under the impression and truly believe that we've picked our life path.
Right.
That we've actually picked our parents and our grandparents and brothers and sisters, and we've picked everything before we came.
Absolutely.
So this really blew my mind when you presented this article, because it goes against everything that I believe in.
Right. And even if it's satire, right? But
right. And she admitted to putting this out because she wanted to make money off of doing this, so she didn't have to work.
Right.
And then some people bought into it. Some people could see it was satire, and some people just blew it off. But there's actually people out there that was believing this.
Yeah. And because you do have that those wrongful conception lawsuits. And so I find frustration there, because I feel like in this society, I mean, you and I have an ethical obligation to our platform, and people don't always do that. People, a lot of times will spout off, or it comes from these emotions, or it's satire, and other people aren't picking up on that. And there's that concern of, first of all, we know how hard it is to find ethical people in any business, but then to find a psychic medium that resonates with you, that is ethical. I don't know that I would go to a psychic medium for advisement on if I should have my child or not, if they consent.
I don't think I would.
No. I like Vanessa. Thank you for tuning in. She says, my culture believes we choose our parents. I've come to understand we have a contract with our family before we're born. I would agree with that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this, all these topics, we just bring them up. It's really for you to kind of decide and to look at within your own perception. But I just don't recommend that, even if it was meant as a joke, because I know some people didn't take that as a joke.
No, they didn't.
So, I
agree. I wouldn't do that either. For something as serious as an abortion. That's something you as an individual person need to decide and figure out, not have someone else tell you what to do.
Absolutely. So take it where you will, people, but I just found that very interesting as I was kind of scouring the web universe, which brought me to another very interesting article. And these go back. This is from June 6th, and this one was published on Fox News. I don't know if many of you have seen this, but this says scantily clad witches caught munching on deer carcass in bizarre security cam footage. I mean, that got my interest, because you don't see that every day, right, Ellie? So
that's right.
The article's in there for you guys to read. But basically what had happened is there was a nurse. She's in Canada. She's a nature lover. And her and her grandfather had found a deer carcass on their property. And it sounds like they kind of have some land. So she had set up with her grandfather a trail camera, right? To kind of catch what's coming in to eat, is it? And they did. They caught a bobcat. We've living in northern Wisconsin. We've done this too, to see the wolves or see what's around. But they got a little bit more than they bargained for. So whether this was a prank or not, and you guys have to click on the link to see the pictures.
Right.
But there are two. It almost looks like they are nude from the waist up, and then kind of have like loincloths on. And some people are speculating they had wigs on. But so their hair's in their face. You can't see who they are. And they're kind of gathered around the deer carcass. I mean, prank, that would scare the shit out of me. Like, seriously, if I pulled that up on my deer cam, I'd be like, first of all, I'd be calling Ellie, and then I'd be like, Barnaby, I have a problem.
Whether it's a prank or not, seeing a picture like that right off the bat would have freaked me out as well.
So what are your thoughts about this, Ellie?
I don't know quite what to think about this. We all feel like there's other things out there besides just us as humans.
Right.
So this wouldn't surprise me if it was true. But yet, on the other hand, people have gotten very good at doctoring up pictures.
Yes.
So could it be that they doctored this picture up and said they got it off their cam to get publicity? I really don't know. I don't
know either. And I kind of giggled, and I shouldn't, but as I was going through and reading, so they had posted this obviously on social media. And again, social media and this platform, people say things, without thinking. And so they had positive feedback. They had very negative feedback on this. But some people claimed it was a prank, and then you have the people that are speculating, that it was something satanic, maybe it was something paranormal. But there was a comment that I struck me as funny and said, and this is a quote from the article, "That's basically a walking demon from hell," one user wrote. "If you hear screaming, stay inside and get a gun. You leave it alone." Now, Ellie, I know you and I, we dabble in clearing. We have
Yes.
encounters with negative energies. I don't know any gun that's going to help me with a negative entity. Do you?
No.
No.
I don't know of any guns that would do anything for you except get in the way.
Right. And I even have my doubts about the
Locking
silver bullet
yourself in
theory.
and locking yourself in the house. That wouldn't do
Right.
much good either.
No. I remember a time my husband and I, we had gone to clear something on the property, and he reminded me that was how all bad horror movies started. But he came along, but he said he was only coming along if he could bring a shotgun. And I laughed. I mean, I just remember laughing, and I'm like, well, if it makes you feel better, but how's that? There's not flesh attached, physical flesh,
Right.
living flesh, I guess I should say, to these things, if that's what you're dealing with. But other people theorized that maybe the figures were, dare I say, skinwalkers or wendigos.
What crossed my mind just now was that as I'm looking at these pictures, you're not seeing through these at all.
No.
And usually with a spirit, it's not a solid,
Correct.
like human. You can
Correct.
still kind of see through them. So I'm not sure what to think of these. I've never seen a skinwalker or indigo to know
Right.
if you see through them or not.
My thought would be, and there is one image where there's a man's leg that can be seen. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning,
sure.
Ariel.
He's got boots on. He's
got boots on. And so it's, but why? So then my mind kind of goes more towards, could it be a cult? Or is it just a prank?
It could very well be a cult.
Right.
That was big back. Cults were really big back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
Where they would get together and do things like this. Yes.
And you don't know, is it a very remote part of Canada? Is it not? But then, and there was some speculation, maybe they are just paying respect to the carcass, to the deceased animal. Either way, it's strange. We kind of got to leave this one to people's
their own imaginations. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I don't, because in here there's a lot of negative connotations towards witches or people that might identify as Wiccan. In any religion or any belief, you have different, what word am I looking for? Degrees of what they believe or what they believe in. This is not in any way meant to be negative towards that culture, because no. I don't feel that a lot of people that practice as Wiccans are dangerous. They're not. They're people with a belief system.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel as well, because I do know a number of witches, and they are so sweet and kind that they would not harm a flea. No. So it's just their belief system. You're right. It is.
And, and I see, because as you go through articles, a lot of times they'll have articles linking you to other things related. And there's an article that you can go to that says, witchcraft expert publishes WAPO piece claiming dangerous Christians are harassing Wiccan festivals. And, I do feel that a lot of times any religion or any belief system can be harassed, and just knock it off, people. Let's support people. I'm not saying you can't have your own belief, but we don't have to harass people no matter where their belief system falls. Let's just be decent human beings.
Exactly. You have yours and they have theirs, and just enjoy your belief and let them enjoy their belief.
Right. And I know some people will come up with, well, what if this? There is a difference in, I've seen extremist Christians break the laws with things that they're doing. And so there's a difference between breaking the laws and belief systems. So let's be clear on that. All right. Moving on. Do you have any articles you want to bring up, Ellie? I really feel like I'm talking a lot.
That's your job.
That's my job. I know, but on days you're here, I'm not supposed to talk as much.
Whichever one you're game for.
Right.
I prepped with the one that we didn't spend a whole lot of time on, which is fine. We touched upon what we needed to with that one. Yeah. So I'm game for whichever one trips your trigger.
Well, I'm thinking I'm really interested in it. You must have added the mole people living in New York. Was that an article you added?
Yeah, there's two of them. There's the one for New York and the one for Las Vegas. And they're called mole people. There's really nothing sinister about them. They just live down underground, down in the tunnels and the water lines and all that down there under the cities.
Right.
They just live down there. They have found that if they live down there, there's people waste food. They find the foods. They're not spending money to live. It was different.
It is different. And again, and Lee says, wow, asking people to behave. Good luck with that. I think, I agree. But I blame a lot of that on social media and the need for people to all feel like, like Ellie and I have different points of views. I would never not be friends with Ellie just because she disagreed with me. And I think that's where we're seeing these bad behaviors from people is we're trying to push our beliefs and there's nothing wrong with being around like-minded people, but we also have to learn how to operate with people who might think differently, to be a little bit open in conversations. And so it's not just behaving, it's just a sense of going back to decency, holding ourselves accountable.
And unfortunately, it's also when you're on social media, it's so easy to post those things because you're not doing it face to face to somebody. You're posting it, putting it out there. So it's really easy to not be so kind because you're not getting that feedback on the spot to realize that, I screwed up. I shouldn't have said that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. And as the producer commented, keyboard courage. Things that we would not say in person. And there's an little meme or whatever on Facebook that says something like social media has allowed people to say things that if they said in person, they'd get hit for. And I kind of agree with that to some extent because we don't have decorum anymore on the internet. There's no decorum.
No. And there's even ways that you can make comments without even posting your legal name.
Yes.
You've got no way of tracing it back to anybody.
Yes. And I'm kind of reading through, and I know, sometimes I like it. I post cute cat stuff mainly. I like that, Lee. It's safe. I mean, most people can go with cute cat stuff.
Yep.
Sometimes people wonder what we're doing too. We might look a little bit distracted, but a lot of times we're going through articles, we're writing things down. So please don't feel like we're disengaged from you, because I don't want you to feel that way.
Yeah. And sometimes we're dealing with the unexpected spirit that comes through that's trying to stop.
That happens too.
Yeah.
Before and after shows and during
shows. Yes.
I like this. Lisa says, I do my best to respond with kindness and love and not feel into it. People don't know how to respond when you don't retaliate. That's a good point.
That's a good point.
It is. Good morning, Dina. Thank you so much for tuning in. I talked to my kids about this because good morning, Cindy. That's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Good morning.
A lot of times, trying to be a leader and just learning we don't have to give our energy to everything and respond to everything. Sometimes you have more power by just letting it move past you and not feeding into that. Would you agree with that, Ellie?
I would totally agree with that. Not only because you're not feeding into it, you're not taking it on either.
Right.
You don't want to be taking on that negative energy.
And so I was kind of reading through as we're talking about back to these mole people. It does sound like, I mean, really, they just want to not be up in society. You know, it's kind of like an underground Amish community. It's very interesting.
Well, definitely a community. I don't know about Amish, but they're definitely a community underneath there.
Well, I just mean, I guess when I say Amish, I just mean limiting their social exposures.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's
That
probably
makes
a better way to put it.
Yes, that definitely makes sense because they really don't want to be a part of the society that is above ground. So they've created their own underground.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So another great article, and I will pop that one over. There's books if you're interested in, because really it's a different society. So if that's something you guys are interested in, check that out. I just sent that over. Let's see. Oh, Lisa says, she also says, I've been accused of running a cult and had a childhood friend warn her Christian friends to avoid me. I told her, you do you and I'll do me. If she ever open to hearing my perspective, I'd gladly have a civil conversation. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, and that's, again, that going back to kindness, going back to understanding we all have different perspectives. So.
And just continue to give her space. Maybe she'll come around and she'll come back to you and talk to you. Just give her space. Just don't
right.
Right.
And I think sometimes, and Ellie, maybe you've run into this too. People don't always understand these things until they have an experience, until something comes in where they're like, I can't explain this. I can't put it into a scientific box. And that's what opens these conversations.
Oh, exactly. There's a lot of that until they actually is confronted themselves.
Right.
They have a hard time understanding it.
Right.
Definitely.
I agree with that. All right, we are going to take our station break. When we come back, we're going to hop over to Las Vegas, as a lot of you guys probably had heard about the 911 body cam and audio that was released for people claiming a UFO crashed in their backyard. We'll be back in just a minute.
No matter the questions, Ellie Weisensell can help you find the answers. Ellie is a gifted intuitive and a natural energy healer, which she applies using the body code and emotion code healing systems, among others, to help you achieve balance for your best results. Are you looking for more clarity about which direction to follow with your life, health, or career? Let Ellie guide you. As a psychic, Ellie can provide clarity to the path you are on, so you may use your free will to change the direction of your life. Are you wanting to communicate with a loved one who's passed? As a certified psychic medium, Ellie Weisensell can connect you with your loved ones on the other side to facilitate healing or offer closure. To schedule your appointment with Ellie, look her up on Facebook at Ellie Weisensell Psychic Medium or email her at ellieweisensell@gmail.com. That's Ellie Weisensell, Weisensell.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is 23 past the hour. And if you're just tuning in, this is the Chat with Charlie show on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. And it's our monthly special of In the Mix with Ellie Weisensell. And if you're just tuning in, we've covered a bunch of different topics, everything from seeking a medium to confirm that your unborn child is giving you their permission for you to receive them, basically, to mole people living under the streets, which is really interesting. And I want to do some more research on that, but there's a link in there where you guys can kind of check that out. And then we talked about the people caught on a trail cam looking like they were eating a deer carcass. So we just bring you the news. You guys interpret it however you will. So
that's true. That is absolutely right.
Yes.
You
So
just bring what you might not find.
right. I mean, and a lot of people, I was actually surprised to see the one with the deer carcass images pop up in such a mainstream media spotlight, because a lot of times we really have to dig for some of these, to find different topics. But this one was actually sent in by a fellow host, Deidre, who sent me the article. And this particular article is Las Vegas police respond to home after 911 call claims UFO with aliens crashed in backyard. And this was on ABC 30 website. And if you go into this, you can actually watch the body cam footage. I believe you can also listen to the 911 initial call from these people. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ellie. I feel like right around when this happened, there were other places in the United States that had similar reports, at least one. And I want to say it was like Ohio.
Very well could be. If you think about this, the government has known about this for a long time. They've always kept it under wraps.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing is that they're actually now unwrapping some of that stuff. And it's becoming what they've kept as top secret is no longer top secret.
Right. And what's interesting, and I had seen, and I wish I would have saved the article, but I was at work and I had a break. So I was kind of going through and looking at news, and it had popped up, and I thought I took a screenshot, but I didn't. So I could go back and find it. But it was talking about the correlation of the smoke from the wildfires in Canada and these claims, because again, and don't quote me on this, I have to go back and look, but I do believe there were several claims of similar situations of these UFOs. Did they crash, or maybe did they just have to land? But people were referencing it was because of the heavy smoke and lack of visibility. I don't know. I wish I would have been able to refind that article.
Just speaking of that article, when you said you thought you took a snapshot, I heard delete it. So look in your deleted side.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
They have,
Go back and check
they
that.
have taken it and they shoved it into the deleted side.
Yeah.
So
and yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I almost cleared my trash in my cell phone yesterday. And for some reason I was like, no, don't do that. So I'm going to go back in and look at that. So thank you. So when you read through this article, and I'm not going to read the article to you because I hated when my teachers would do that. You guys can go in and read these things, but there's some interesting things. So in the call, they talk about seeing something falling down from the sky, seeing lights, hearing like a big impact, and feeling that with, rippling out, or however you want to put it. And then they said they heard footsteps. And what they saw, they described as an 8-foot person, many of them, like 2. And they're saying they're very large. They're like 8 foot tall. They're not human. And they do seem a little panicked in the call. When the police actually arrive, they did an investigation and it was closed as unfounded. But what I found interesting going through this article again to have this conversation, and again, there's links as things are updated. There's a related article in there now that says House Oversight plans UFO hearing after unconfirmed claims of crashed alien spacecraft. Why are they hearing if it is unconfirmed? If there's no reason to believe this, if it's completely unfounded, why are we having a hearing?
This again takes me back to the comment I made earlier about the government and having this knowledge all these years. I mean, from my understanding, they've had it back in the 50s and 60s, a ton of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, there's actually probably something to this, that they're actually taking this one further.
Yeah, and it says Republican representative, and now this is the article, this was on ABC 7, that talks about the House having this meeting coming up, that they're investigating this, and they officially referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. But you have people coming out from the Pentagon saying that they have not discovered any verifiable information to sustain claims about crashed alien craft. But I don't know about you, and even looking at this from a parent's perspective, if something, dealing with my kids and something might be going on and it's unfounded, I can't find anything to support, if someone's snitching out somebody else, it's done. We don't look into it further. We don't say this is finished. So the fact that there is now going to be this meeting, really, why aren't more people asking questions about this?
They don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah. And really, are we going to get truthful answers?
Yes. This does surprise me that they are actually publicizing this, and on an ABC news station. I mean, this is not one of those other ones that we find some of our stuff on that makes you wonder, are they being truthful or not? But to me, there's something here.
Yeah. There really is. And even if you read through the article, you cannot be so dismissive and then be like, oh yeah, but we're having a meeting about it. That's just that tone really, really baffles me.
Yeah.
I'm just I want to click on this other link and see, then it is, so there's, oops, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I apologize. There was a video clip, but now it also shows NASA releasing some of these things. And so I always have these questions when you start seeing, oh, the government's going to have a meeting on this. Oh, and then they release little tidbits. What are they diverting from? So why are they trying to refocus our perspective, or why are they trying to refocus what we're actually looking at? So is there a bigger picture?
That was crossing my mind as you were saying that, is like they're giving this stuff out to take you away from something else.
Right. So what are we missing? Where's the big picture? Is this, do we need some of our conspiracy theorist friends to come in and what? Because something is being missed. They are intentionally redirecting. Okay, you guys want to talk about aliens, but let's talk about it in this aspect, and we're going to completely push this side aside. And like Dina says, just like Area 51.
Yes, exactly.
That's very true. So and again, my gut feeling is with the call, with the police investigation, I don't feel like that part is a hoax. I do feel like they believe they saw something. But what?
And are we ever going to actually know what that was?
Right. And I'm just going to click in here because I really do think that there were other ones. All right. And as I look through that, I want to kind of talk about, because some of our other articles, diverting attention away from some other topic. Right. I mean, and exactly. It could be anything. And what's interesting, as I type this in and I'm not finding it pulling in anywhere else, but this was not just reported on locally. So this happened in Las Vegas, and there's CNN, news stations from across the country, and some pretty big names that reported on this. So
on that same topic,
on that same one in Las Vegas. So that's, I find very interesting, because it's a list of all these different outlets that did an article on it.
Well, they talked about 650 incidences dating back decades.
Right.
So
And
there's
what was the catalyst for those starting? Like, was it just lack of reporting? Has it always been going on? That's something I'd like to know, what the catalyst was.
I am sure it's always been going on, but you got to remember back in the day, people didn't talk about that thing,
No.
what happened or what they saw, because they were looked upon as there's something wrong with that person. So when they had things happen or saw things, they pretty much didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And nowadays we have so many more people. There's so much going on. News is just that. I mean, we're seeing the news even as it's happening.
Yes.
Versus back in the 50s and in the 60s, and that something could happen, and if you lived in a different part of the country, you never heard nothing about it, because
no, that's a great point.
Yeah. So I truly feel this has been going on for many, many years, decades upon decades.
Yeah.
It's just that we didn't know about it back then. We didn't hear about it.
I agree. Then. Yeah. And, and there are some talks of when you get into, language was a barrier, but even some cave drawings, there are unexplainable cave drawings for that time. So
we didn't even read them.
Yeah. Cindy says you do not need them to affirm your gut feelings or listen to their explanation. You don't. Lee says she feels it was the atomic bomb set off. And Todd says, I think that's where it all started. We crossed the line and they became curious. It could be.
Very well could be.
Could be. So on to another. We're just jumping topics all over here today, people. And so please feel free to pop in get in the mix with us, right? Get in the mix with us. Pop in your things. But there's a couple articles that we had in here that talk about people claiming they were possessed when they were charged with murder or when they committed a crime. And the one that I'm looking at particularly is, it was on Herald Net, and that was out of Everett, Washington. And a man claimed he was possessed by demons when he was charged with second-degree murder in his wife's death. And there's been a lot, that has come up with a lot of topics. There's one of the Warren films are based on that. I don't remember which one it is, maybe The Conjuring 3, where he was possessed when he committed a crime. But this has been a defense that's been used a lot of times. Do you think, and I don't think that there's always been validity to that, but do you think there could be validity to similar situations?
I think there could be validity because of what we do, what we deal with, and what we've seen. I truly believe it could be. However, I also look at the other side of the coin, that people can use that because there's no verification, there's no proof, there's nothing hard set rule to go with.
Right.
It's an easy thing to use.
Yeah, and how do you, as a lawyer, how would you prove that somebody was demonically possessed when they committed a crime?
Do you have to prove it, or you just have to be with the doubt? Put that doubt into somebody's mind that this could happen. So now you've got that doubt. Oh, it could happen. Right. So you can't charge him with something when you don't truly believe he did it.
And then is it, as a lawyer, I think that would be so hard. Yeah, reasonable doubt, Lee, but I don't think, especially in today's society, people would look at it as a mental illness. But I think demonic possession, even though it's rare, it does happen, but I think people push it off as a mental illness.
Okay, I lost you. Did you lose everybody, or is it just on my side again?
Oh, we're good. Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Why wouldn't it go? Because we're talking about demonic possession. Why would we not lose audio and camera?
Exactly.
What I was saying is, I think in today's society, people are more apt to believe mental illness versus a demonic possession. And I've also, this is kind of took me down a rabbit hole when I read this article, because you look at back when we were more institutionalized with mental health, how many of those people were dealing with mental health and how many were dealing with inflictions?
Totally agree. Totally agree. And it's easier to label somebody with mental health than it is trying to figure out what's actually going on with them.
Right.
If it is something from the other side that's affecting them, it's just easier to label them as mental health.
It is. And, I look at, because this is kind of where I went with that rabbit hole, is if it's truly mental health, would you not think that medication could correct that? So are people that are dealing with ongoing mental health issues simply not being prescribed the right medications, or are they dealing with an affliction?
Talking about medication takes us down another rabbit hole, though, because medication does not actually cure anything. It just covers everything
up. It
up.
treats the symptoms.
Exactly. But it doesn't cure anything. So giving them medication, granted, if you give them the wrong one, it's going to make things worse. But giving them the right one doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help them either.
Right. So I don't. What are the viewers' thoughts on this? Do you think that is that a viable defense? Possession. I don't know. And I think, like Ellie said, working in the area of the field that we do, I could see that absolutely being an issue. But then, and this kind of popped into my head, even with the people who are very religious, they have a very hard time accepting possession. Why? If you are, especially, in a Christian type faith, where it talks about the devil, it talks about these things. I mean, you even have the casting out of these entities into the pigs and sending them off the cliff. Why do we have such a hard time believing it can happen in this physical world?
But even in religion, when they talk about that, they don't want you digging into that. They want you specifically to stay on the spiritual good side.
Yes.
And believing in God. So even though they're talking about the other side, they're really not wanting you to be on the other side.
Do you think that's where, because right now I feel like society is a little out of balance. Do you think because we don't want to have those conversations and because we don't want to acknowledge those things, that's part of what's putting us out of balance?
There's a number of things in the mix that's putting us out of balance.
Yeah.
That can be included in it. That's part of it. That definitely, but there's been so much going on the last couple of years, so many changes, things that we've never dealt with, we've had to deal with. Everything just, to me, is out of balance to some degree. And some people have a harder time accepting that out of the balance, not being in the norm, and other people can handle it better.
Right. Well, and I think, and Cindy says because they are using reason where really reason isn't being used. So, and those things that you can't put in that scientific box. But Dina asks, and I think this is a great question before we head to our last break. Schizophrenia, you hear voices. How do you differentiate? Especially us as being a medium. How do you differentiate, Ellie?
It can be very difficult when you're not trained in it and understanding it. It is very difficult to differentiate it. I've known people that can hear the voices and don't realize that it's not a voice to be listening to because it's not a good voice. They don't realize it. They tend to portray what you want to hear and see, and that's what they will give you. It doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
But they'll give you what you want, hoping that you'll accept it because you look at it as being good.
Right. And you're going to follow that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I tell people too, and I can't remember who the guest was, but we had been having a similar conversation. And they had said something to the extent of, and this has happened to me where maybe you're driving down the street and normally you would go left and all of a sudden you're like, go right. And then you start to have kind of this mental argument. Well, why do I want to go right? I usually go left. But when you can stop yourself and start recognizing, why would that come into my head? Why? And then why would I argue about it? So it's not a thought that's my own. It's something telling me this. But then, watching for red flags. I know, with advocating for children and talking to some of these kiddos where I'm trying to differentiate for them. Are they having maybe some kind of mental episode? Are they really working within their abilities? And red flags. Are the voices, like Ellie said, are they telling you maybe to hurt yourself? Are they maybe always just giving you what you want? So you're like, maybe you're married and you're like, hey, this person's really good looking. Should I sleep with them? And all of a sudden they're like, yes. That's not spirit. But, that's an extreme example. But
it's an example. It's good.
Yeah. And looking at those things, looking at, yes, listening to your gut feelings, but sometimes people will mix their gut feelings with the lust of something because you want it. And that was something, in learning to work with my rods and pendulum, taking out that emotion of what you want that response to be. And so are they always giving you the response that you want? Are they always giving you those ideas of grandeur? Or are they supporting you in your journey? Are they calling you out being like, hey, dummy, that wasn't great. Let's work through this. Because spirit will do that.
They will.
So those are things to look at. Even in working with kids, and I'll say, okay, well, what are you picking up on? And they might tell me. And then I say, well, will they talk to me? No. Why? That's an issue.
Yeah.
So looking and being aware. But like Ellie said, if you're not educating and taking your time to educate yourself in this field, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
It's very hard to tell. And then you may end up being on the wrong side there.
Absolutely. So we are going to take our last station break. When we come back, I'll tell you what's coming up on the shows ahead, what's coming up with the Chat with Charlie show. And if we have time, we'll offer you some inspiration for your days ahead. We'll see you in just a minute.
Have fun for a great cause. July 1st, 2023. The Broadhead Manor fundraiser. Help save the roof and restore this iconic building to its natural state. Make a donation to receive some amazing gifts like psychic readings, books by authors Chad Lewis, Todd Bates, and Christina Bloom, attire from Expedition Entity and We Are Paranormal, and much, much more. Join the fun July 1st at Broadhead Manor from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Bring the whole family. There will be face painting and games for the kids. Vendors, psychics, food, and music and karaoke by Boogie Nights for the adults. Broadhead Manor, where numerous spirits call home, located in Broadhead, Wisconsin. For more information, find them on Facebook.
Welcome back. It is almost 50 past the hour where you are joining us for the last portion of the WLTK-DB Chat with Charlie special in the mix, where I have been joined with my amazing co-host Ellie Weisensell. We've been bringing you weird news throughout the world, throughout the web, different topics. So please, a lot of you have been sending in articles. Please keep sending those in. Please get in the mix with us live. I love the action of everybody. So really quick, before Ellie and I try to give you some inspiration and take a little weirdness out of your everyday world. Coming up in August, so some big changes for the Chat with Charlie show. I am switching days and times, guys. Okay. So starting in August, I will be coming back on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm switching to a night slot on Wednesdays. All of July, you're going to have to catch reruns. I am going to take some time off for family, but you'll still catch me on the universe in the evenings. So please write that down. I hope you guys all follow me over to Wednesday nights or download the show and catch it when you can. Guests coming up in August. On the 2nd, we will have Debbie from Transcend with Debbie. She's amazing. She has great energy. Ellie, of course, will be back. And on the 23rd, Kim Coots, who, if you caught her earlier in this month, we had talked about dealing with grief and being a grief counselor. But she's going to be coming back to talk about astrology. And I told her she could use me as a guinea pig. So she's going to be sharing my chart with me and you live. It could be scary, but we're going to figure out astrology together. So please join us for that. All right, Ellie, what kind of inspiration do you have for our viewers today?
Are we looking at pulling a card or?
Whatever you want to do, whatever you feel led to do.
I'll pull a card. I've been shuffling a deck here, and during the break, I picked up the deck and started shuffling, and it's like, okay, give me a card, and half the deck fell on the floor. It's like, I'm not doing half the deck.
I don't have time for this today, guys. I love that when they do that. I mean, they usually have a lot to say in those moments, but
half a deck?
Half a deck is a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. You know, we haven't done, and maybe that's their point, because I don't usually do reading shows, but maybe we need to have you on just to do some pulling cards for people too. Maybe that's what they're saying.
We could always do that. One of the shows could be a
reading show, something.
Yeah.
Get in the mix or out of the mix of yourself, something.
Something like that. That would work. Yeah. Okay, so I have the deck is the Sacred Forest, which I do love.
I love that deck.
I do love this deck. And the card that came out is Wizard of the Woods Focus.
I love that one.
So I don't know if you can see that very well. But to me, that's saying that there is a lot going on. And so often people don't go into woods because they're afraid.
Yes.
But when they're saying focus, it's opening up to the perspective of the other side, willing to take on and trying new and different things. So this is a gentleman coming out of the woods. And to me, he's asking you to come in and join him and see what's on the other side.
You know, what's interesting as you were talking about that card? Well, two things, because I pulled a card also, and it really relates, and I was interpreting it very similarly to your card. But then as you were talking, a lot of the things stuck out to me with the upcoming thing we have going on later in the month. And I was like, ha, funny, guys. And we're not going to tell you guys all about that, but we're very excited to be joining the CAPS team and Barnaby on an adventure later next month. So,
which at some point in a year or so, it'll be out for everybody to see anyways.
Yes, it will be. And
there.
It involves the woods. So I just found that very curious. No, not Bigfoot, actually, Lee, not Bigfoot. So I like that. I pulled from the Soul Cards deck, and this card's kind of hard to see. So, but if you see down here, there's a lot of eyes. And the thing that really stuck out to me at first was the face. And then there's some different colorings that come out of the face. And to me, I saw those as scars. I saw those as individual judgments. And I felt that lack of focus, like Ellie was talking about, with all these eyes watching you, right? So you're not necessarily focused on your journey. You're worried about how people are interpreting what you're doing on that journey. So your focus, even though you're going through your journey, is really focused on how these other people are viewing you and how they're interpreting things. And so I agree with Ellie saying it's a time of being called into your own journey, focusing on that, and kind of I'm seeing like letting it shed off like snakeskin, not holding yourself to other people's perspectives, but really focusing on where you want to go, why you want to go there, and sticking with that, not letting other people sway you. So staying focused. I hope that makes sense.
And one thing I'd like to say is when you showed up that card, I don't know what's coming off of the face, but I see a lot of faces within those individual.
There is, yes.
A lot of different faces. So, and that actually kind of ties into part of the segment we had today is not taking on others' beliefs, but believing in yourself.
Yes.
And through that journey, just do what you want for yourself. Don't worry about what other people say or think or do. Because so much of what's out there, they're throwing that at you because they've got something going on inside themselves that they're not dealing with.
I wish as a child or younger, I would have realized that, because I look at how much I limited myself or my belief in myself because of other people's perceptions put on me. Does that make sense? Like even in school, even in high school, I wish I would have realized that really isn't a reflection of me. That's a reflection of something, like Ellie says, going on within them.
Within themselves, yep.
And I wasn't talking about you, Mom. Not this time. So, and, you know, for some of you on the East Coast, I will be on the East Coast for a very limited time. So if you're looking to book something, shoot me a message or send me an email. Ellie, where are you going to be? And I'm not going to be able to join you on the 15th because I opted. Yeah. I know my mom's coming out.
Yeah, totally understandable. I'm going to be up in Eau Claire at the Soul and Synergy Fair, Health and Wellness Fair on the 15th. I think it's the 15th. It's a Saturday.
It is. It's the 15th.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Make sure. I know, Ellie, you've shared that on your Facebook site, and a couple of us have shared that out there too. And are you doing something different at this fair?
I am adding in what I just recently got. It's called an AO scan.
Yeah.
That is just amazing. All the answers it will give you of what's going on inside the body. So I've added that into as one of my modalities. So I'm bringing that up there that day. Yes.
That'll be interesting. And we will, Ellie and I have talked about having her on to talk about that as she's used it more, because I think that would be something that would just blow viewers' minds. So
I think so. I was going to do it on you on that Saturday.
I know. I might still, I'm actually thinking I might talk my mom into going down and just come down as a spectator, just not as a participant. And so she can meet some of my friends and see what I do. But what is I going to tell people? Oh, tonight on The Universe, which is at 6 Central Standard Time, you can join myself as I co-host with the amazing and incorrigible Rob Thompson. We are going to be having Melanie on, who is a death midwife. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Please find Ellie on her websites. If you're local, hop down to Eau Claire, introduce yourself, say hi. And we will see you all back next month as we get in the mix. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellie. It's always so much fun.
I love joining you. It's always entertaining. There's always something different and unexplained.
Yes. And remember, get in the mix with us. Send us your weird news or maybe just weird individual experiences, and we'll see if we can offer you some insight. So, all right. I will see you guys tonight, and then I will see you all back in August. Remember, new time at 5 p.m. on Wednesdays. Goodbye.
Bye.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.